March 2012 found me back on historic Burnside Street in Bristol, Rhode Island, home of the Herreshoff Marine Museum and the Bristol Boat Company, where master builder and woodworker Dan Shea, along with his crew of Bruce Cresser and Bradford Gove, were hard at work on their latest project, reconstructing hull number 3 of a nearly century-old wooden Herreshoff S-boat. It's an incredibly involved and complex project, as Shea explains.
The reconstruction process really needs to start with an understanding of what shape the boat has taken now after almost 100 years of sailing and being laid up and reconstructed once or twice. In taking measurements of the boat fore and aft and thwartships, we found that this boat in particular had two major problems. One was the keelson had been replaced, and in doing so the stern was twisted off to starboard and the stem was twisted off the port, as well as, and we find this in normal deterioration over a period of time, that both the bow and the stern had drooped, so that in making that map, we were able to overcome in a gross way the changes over time by lifting it in the bow and the stern and with poppets on the underside, taking some of the twist out, and then laminating this CVK, or center vertical keelson, that runs the length of the boat, getting the keel exactly straight fore and aft.
For an idea of what the reconstructed boat would look like, we only had to step across the street to the Herreshoff Museum, where a beautiful S-boat named Widgeon is displayed. From 1919 to 1941, the Herreshoff Manufacturing Company, located on the same grounds as the museum and Dan Shea's shop, built 98 S-class boats, 75 of which are still sailing. The museum also contains the original half model of the S-boat, which Shea measured with a special offset device to create a series of 11 plywood stations that will help him reshape the hull to its original form.
Well, let's find out.
All right. Give that a try first.
Yeah. Don't know till we try.
And here is an example of a station that's made, of which we're putting in 11 temporary stations to define the exact hull form. And on each station we're attaching a finished floor, which is one of the primary structural parts of the boat, and joining the frames and planking to the keelson. In this case, we're working with the original ballast keel, and we've taken a very precise template of the ballast keel and keel bolts, so that when we set everything on the stations with the floor, that they go exactly where they need to go to fit the original ballast keel. This is actually has come from the Royal Danish Forest. It was cut in conjunction with the Coronet project in Newport, and we were able to purchase some of those timbers to make our floors. And you can see how perfect the grain is, and especially the end grain.
So you put a number next to the thing you took a picture of. You write the number.
This arrangement of stations and water lines is typical of what records we need to keep going from station to station as the stations are placed and heights are taken, in working toward the height that it should be from the original offsets. So in each station and in increments, we're moving the boat slowly to where it should be, both in heights and in breadths, approaching the original shape.
To help align the stations, the crew uses a laser hung from a beam in the shop to mark the exact center line of the boat.
I don't know.
Once all of the stations are secured and the floor supports attached to the keelson, new frames and planking will be installed. Some of those frames had already been cut and steam bent from Shea's stash of fine-grained white oak stock milled by Newport Nautical Timbers.
We've gone through and graded the material that we're using for the frames. You can see how perfect the grain is in the white oak here that we use for bending. We're fortunate to have Newport Nautical Timbers right up the street who saws all of our white oak. This happens to be selected from a stand in Virginia for us. From our raw white oak stock, which is milled to the original specifications and dimensions, actually increasing 1/16 inch per foot, and treated with raw linseed oil and turpentine. We set up a grid on a table like this that gives us the shape of any station, including the twist, and steam bend the raw stock and work it into the final shape to be placed in the boat. Remembering in this reconstruction, we're not using the boat for steam bending the planks in place. We're actually steam bending the planks to the original shape and using those pre-bent frames to get the final shape put back in the boat. So a bit different process.
There's no doubt that Shea, Cresser, and Gove have their work cut out for them, but when they're finished with the project, the lines and hull form will be exactly as Captain Nathaniel Herreshoff had intended when he carved his half model of the famous S-boat nearly a century ago.